Hey guys, Suze here. Welcome back to another Keto Dinner Ideas, what to eat for dinner on the keto diet video. If you're new here, we try to film these every single week, covering 4 new easy keto recipes to give you a little inspiration and motivation to get in the kitchen and get your keto meal prep on. I would love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join our crew. And as always, check us out over at Suze and the Crew on Instagram. Make sure you share this video with your friends and give us a big thumbs up if you like it. Let's get into the video. First up this week, we made an awesome version of this BBQ Chicken Casserole by Joy Filled Eats. So to start with, in a little mixing dish, we put 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons smoked paprika, a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon ground black pepper, an eighth of a teaspoon, about a dash of cayenne pepper, an eighth of a teaspoon dried rosemary leaves, and about an eighth to a fourth of a teaspoon thyme. And we're just mixing that together. This is going to be our barbecue seasoning. Now into a big mixing bowl, I am adding 6 ounces of softened cream cheese with a half a cup of avocado oil mayo and a half a cup of sour cream, and I'm just going to cream this together with a big spoon. And honestly, it always grosses me out when I make anything like this with mayo mixed into it, but as soon as I went ahead and added this dry barbecue seasoning and mixed that in there, it started to smell so delicious and didn't gross me out nearly as much. Now to that, I am adding 2 12-ounce bags of frozen cauliflower that I thawed and drained, along with 4 cups of cubed chicken breast, and I just took 3 really big chicken breasts, baked them in the oven, and then cut them up into little cubes for this, and I'm just gonna fold those in. You wanna make sure you're stirring from the bottom just to make sure everything's fully coated. After I've got that mixed some, I'm adding 3/4 a cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese. Now this is pre-shredded, but shred your own if you wanna save yourself on the carbs. And I'm adding 1/3 of a cup. We have 2/3 of a cup total. I'm adding half of it into the mix and just mixing that together until it's nice and combined. And into a 13 by 9 baking dish, I'm just gonna dump all of this out. And then make sure I have it in the casserole dish nice and evenly. I'm gonna top it with another 1/4 to a half a cup shredded sharp cheddar cheese and our other 1/3 of a cup of bacon crumbles. I just fried this in advance, by the way, and crumbled it. And then I'm gonna pop this entire casserole in the oven at 350 for 40 minutes. This is what it looks like when it comes out. Look how good this looks. Oh my gosh, it smelled even better. I think this was my husband's favorite recipe of the week. Here it is, all plated up. This is perfect for doing a keto meal prep, as it stores and reheats and tastes almost even better left over than it does the first night. Next up, we made these delicious pork chops with a warm lemon butter vinaigrette with a side of arugula. So to start with, onto a plate, I'm taking 2 bone-in pork chops. Now, as you can see, these are crazy thick. They are like almost 2 inches thick. I did not do that intentionally, but we had our groceries delivered, and that's what the person shopping picked out. So I'm just patting those dry with a paper towel, and then I'm gonna season both sides of these with a little sea salt and some ground black pepper. Once I have both of those seasoned, I'm taking my cast iron. I'm going ahead and preheating it on high heat. Once that's nice and heated, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And as soon as that's nice and shimmery, I'm adding my chops straight to the pan. I'm gonna sear these without moving them for 5 minutes on this side, flipping them over to the other side. And because cast iron gets really hot and maintains that heat, I'm also gonna sear these for 5 minutes on this side, but about halfway through, I'm gonna cut my heat down to medium. And because these are 2 inches thick, I'm taking a baking dish and I'm just gonna remove my chops to it and go ahead and put them into a 425-degree oven to go ahead and get to temperature in the middle. I'm gonna go ahead and let them cook for about 10 minutes. Go ahead and cut the heat off of my pan. Now, after those have cooked 10 minutes, my pan's cooled off. I'm turning it back onto medium, adding another tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, a heaping teaspoon of minced garlic, and I'm just stirring that around. You see it's getting brown pretty quickly. To that, instead of adding fresh thyme, I'm just adding about a half a teaspoon of dry thyme and mixing that around in there before adding 1 lemon that we just sliced into about 1/4-inch lemon wheels. And I'm gonna put those in there and let those cook just for a minute or so until they get nice and brown on the other side. Turning those over. Gonna add a tablespoon of butter to this. I just cut it in half, and then I'm gonna slowly mix these together to make our lemon butter vinaigrettes. And I did pop most of the seeds out of these lemons. Now, once that is done, our pork chops should be about to temperature. They've been in the oven for about a total of 15 minutes. Again, if you're using thinner chops, you won't have to add this step. So I'm just using a meat thermometer, and we wanna make sure that they're at least 145. Here it is plated up with a side of fresh arugula and drizzled some of that vinaigrette over the top top of the chop and the greens, and topped it with one of the lemon wheels. This was my favorite meal of the week, as I'm a huge pork chop fan. And again, if you have thinner chops, of course you're going to adjust your cooking times accordingly. Next up, we have these salmon and cream cheese cheesy cloud biscuits. My husband really wanted something with smoked salmon. So to start with, he took a little mixing dish. He's adding a half a cup of almond flour, 3/4 of a cup sharp shredded cheddar cheese, along with a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Mixing that together, he kind of made a well in the middle of it. And to that, he's adding 1 beaten egg. Mixing that together and then adding a tablespoon of heavy cream. Mixing that until it's just nice and combined, but not too overly mixed. Then he took a cookie sheet, lined it with parchment paper, divided the dough into fourths, and then kind of mashed each one of those out. And he's going to pop these into a 350-degree oven for 15 minutes. Here's what they look like when they come out. These don't look like much, but they are so delicious. To go ahead and assemble his biscuit, he is just using a butter knife to cut that in half, adding about 1 ounce of softened cream cheese, a little arugula, and then we are using some smoked salmon. You just buy those pre-packaged, just like blocks like you would put on bagels or such. He's adding about 6 to 8 ounces of that onto his biscuit and then popping the top of the biscuit back on. You could also add some red onion or some avocado. Here it is plated up. He loved this. I am not a fan of smoked salmon, so I had my biscuit with some Swiss cheese and some deli ham, and it was absolutely delicious as well. And you can make these in advance and just store your biscuits in a container and just assemble them, when you're ready for lunch. This would be a perfect keto lunch. Last up this week, I wanted a simple, easy recipe. I just threw this together. It's just an original throw what you got into a crock pot kind of recipe. So to start with, I took my large oval crock pot. I'm adding a 2-pound chuck roast to that, and I'm adding about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce onto each side of my roast. Then I'm going to add some sea salt and some ground black pepper to each side as well. After I do that, I'm adding a teaspoon of minced garlic, and I'm just going to rub that all over one side, flip it over, rub the remnants onto the other side. To that, I'm adding 1/4 of a cup of mild banana peppers that I just had in a jar. Make sure you look at your carbs, make sure there's no sugar added to the brine. Adding 1/4 of a cup of that brine in there also. And then on top of this, I'm just gonna add 1 stick of butter. And then if you have the time, you can cook this on low all day for about 8 hours. But I was in a hurry throwing this together later on in the afternoon, so I just cooked mine on high for 4 hours. And here's what it looks like when it's done. I didn't even stir it as it was cooking. And then I just sliced it up into chunks, and I steamed some cauliflower rice, ladled out a nice big scoop of that broth and fat off of the chuck roast, and mixed it in with the cauliflower rice, and I just served a couple slices of the roast on top. There you go. Very simple recipe to just throw in that crock pot. A good way to make a chuck roast more tender, because that's usually a tougher cut of meat, and perfect to make ahead of time and reheat as leftovers. So there you go, guys. That's this week's Keto Dinner Ideas, what to eat for dinner if you're on a keto diet. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with your friends. The more eyes we get on our video, the more encouraged we are to actually keep making them. If you're not already a member of the crew, please hit that subscribe button. And until next time, bye guys.